Friends, we'd like to begin. Good afternoon, welcome. My rabbinic friends don't pay any attention to me. I don't know why. They've known me for too long. My name is Jerry Serrata. I'm a rabbi, the executive director of the Interfaith Conference in Metropolitan Washington. Welcome to my sisters and brothers from the religious community, several distinguished public servants who are with us, and our friends from the media. The Interfaith Conference that I represent was founded 40 years ago. We represent 11 historic faith communities. Several of our faith leaders are with us today. Only a couple of them will have the opportunity of speaking. We are not from one particular party. We are a very diverse group. We're not from one particular ideology, the religious community represented here. But every one of our faiths recognizes that we are one human family, and we inhabit one small planet, an ark, if you wish. Our gathering here this afternoon represents the best response we can make to the darkness of racism and hatred that will be present at the so-called Unite the Right rally. It's hard to say that. It's really Unite the Wrong rally that will be here this Sunday. One that will sully this community on Sunday, exactly 1 year since the violence that led to death and destruction in our neighboring community of Charlottesville. 55 years ago, a contemporary prophet published these words in a book called The Strength to Love. Returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As you can see from the statement that I hope you have copies of, there are extra copies outside, and it's posted right here, which has been signed by over 160 religious leaders in this community. Our responses this weekend and going forward from this date, for as long as it takes, will be to pray, reflect, worship, and work together to foster dialogue, respect, and love among peoples of different backgrounds, including in this space tonight, a Sabbath service with interfaith participation at 6 p.m. tonight. Before introducing those who will address you today, let me acknowledge the co-sponsors of this program, as well as Rabbi Bruce Lustig of Washington Hebrew Congregation, which is a community and congregation that has stood at the forefront of the struggle for civil rights and human rights, and has generously offered its facilities and the efforts of its staff and time, and again, offered to promote these kinds of activities in the community. We deeply appreciate as well our partners in this effort today, the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington and its staff, the D.C. Regional Office of the Anti-Defamation League, and the Faith Community Advisory Council of Montgomery County. Let me first call up to speak to you two distinguished leaders of our community, Ron Halber, who is the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council, and Doron Ezekson, Executive Director of the ADL Regional Office. Gentlemen, you want to come up together?
Can you hear me without this, or is it microphone preferable?
I think for the TV.
Microphone? Okay. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Today we gather in unison at Washington Hebrew Congregation with community leaders, elected officials, and clergy, representing over a dozen faith traditions and more than 160 diverse congregations from across the city and throughout the region, to offer a simple statement to those organizing and attending the Unite the Right rally. We are here to do what is right. The late, great Elie Wiesel explained that the opposite of hate is not love, it is indifference, and we will not be indifferent. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said, "Racism is man's gravest threat to man, the maximum of hatred for a minimum of reason. We unequivocally reject your unreasonable message of hate and violence. There is no place for your baseless and offensive views in our city. As we stated in our Declaration of Unity, we speak with one voice and declare we will not allow your hatred and divisiveness to consume our great city. Your hate will be met with our collective voice of prayer, unity, love, and action as congregations throughout the region hold interfaith services and programs where our shared values of equal rights, pluralism, and democracy are affirmed, bigotry is rejected, and we recommit ourselves to embracing people of all backgrounds. Frankly, in the end, it doesn't matter whether the Unite the Right organizers bring 10, 100, or even 1,000 people to our nation's capital for their hate fest. They've accomplished nothing except being a stimulus for a reaffirmation of unity, love, and solidarity throughout our city and region, the exact opposite of what they hope to inspire. And I hope everybody has a peaceful, meaningful, and safe weekend.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Ron. This weekend, as we commemorate the tragic loss of life that occurred in Charlottesville as a result of last year's white supremacist rally, we are reminded that extremists in the U.S. are more emboldened than in recent or even long-term memory. Their rise threatens all religions, all ethnic minorities, all people of good faith. We, through our Center on Extremism at the ADL, have been tracking the weekend's activities and working with law enforcement and community partners on real-time intelligence so as to help create the safest possible environment for all individuals in Washington this weekend. There is no question that hate is on the rise. We see it, unfortunately, in our schools. We see it on our campuses. We see it online, and we hear it, unfortunately, magnified too often by those so-called leaders who do not understand the true value of democracy and that diversity is, in fact, our greatest strength. We need to turn Charlottesville, and can turn the memory of Charlottesville from a message or a tragic story of the elevation of hate to one when Americans of good faith took their country back and returned to the values that make our country truly unique. While this rally may attract fewer white supremacists than last year's gathering, we must remain vigilant, and we are encouraged by the proactive steps taken by Mayor Bowser, Chief Newsham, and other law enforcement agencies to prepare our community for this moment and to protect all of the citizens who will come out to express their views. This declaration, the declaration by so many of our partners here today, is a testament to the actual strength of the bonds our region's faith leaders and their congregations maintain, and a powerful statement, again, that our diversity is our strength. We will confront the division sown by the racism, anti-Semitism, xenophobia of others by forging new relationships in our communities, by having conversations as families in our congregations, in our schools, and working toward a shared and ultimate vision of equality and dignity for people of all faiths. Thank you for your partnership.
I now want to invite to address us a man who I would describe in biblical terms as a pursuer of peace and a pursuer of justice, the Honorable Jamie Raskin, United States House of Representative from the state of Maryland, District 8, my district, and a longtime friend of our family, and of peace and justice.
Thank you, Rabbi Sereda. Greetings to everybody in the religious community. Thank you for standing up so strong today and through the weekend. Greetings to all of my friends from the D.C. Council. I saw Mary Che, Alyssa Silverman, the chairman, Mendelson, was here. There he is. Anita Bonds. Hello, Anita. I'm delighted to be working with you guys in expressing our regional opposition to what's taking place down on the Mall. And I just wanted to say a few things. One is, I thought it was very important, along with my dear colleague Eleanor Holmes Norton, to organize a teach-in because I've got 3 kids. I really don't want them going down there on Sunday. I don't want anybody getting hurt or killed a year after the murder of Heather Heyer. And so we want to be able to channel people's concern and frustration in a positive way. So we're going to meet the ignorance with education, and we're going to meet the violent hate that we've seen on parade with nonviolent commitment to social change and the kind of brotherhood and sisterhood that our best Americans have stood up for in our history. And, you know, as a member of Congress, I've sworn an oath to defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And the people who are brandishing their Confederate battle flags and their swastikas are undoubtedly exercising their First Amendment rights, and so be it. But let us be perfectly clear also that they are enemies of our Constitution and our democracy and our country, which means that we have an obligation to stand up strong against what it is they're saying. And so I'm thrilled to be with everybody here in standing up for what is best in America. And finally, I have found it very important to send the message to young people in our region that we understand their concern and their anxiety about what's taking place in our country. And we do not consider them snowflakes. On the contrary, if you look at what happened in Charlottesville a year ago, the night before Heather Heyer was killed, the neo-Nazis gathered outside of synagogue while Shabbat services were taking place on the inside, and they chanted their anti-Semitic slogans, and then they marched without a permit through the University of Virginia campus. And classes hadn't started yet, so there weren't that many students on campus, but there were some who were back for their athletic teams and were back for the freshman orientation. And they saw what was happening, and they ran outside immediately, many of them in their pajamas or sweatpants, and they surrounded the statue of Thomas Jefferson in front of this mob of hundreds of torch-wielding skinheads and neo-Nazis. And they chanted that Jefferson was on their side. Jefferson was a slave master. And so they were there to take the University of Virginia back. But the students knew that what was important about Jefferson was not his flaws as an individual, not the fact that he was a slave master, and they knew that, but what the good was that he was involved in, that he had founded the University of Virginia, that he wrote the Virginia Religious Statute, a statute on religious freedom, that he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and it was the Declaration that established the ideals of the country through which we came to change and overthrow slavery, that all of us are created equal, that everybody has life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as unalienable rights, that democracy must rest on the consent of the governed. And so they were standing up for what Jefferson had actually contributed to the country and those ideals. So they were very tough and they were very brave. And we have to be as tough and as brave as they are in standing up for the ideals of the country. I will turn it back to you, and I, again, want to thank everybody for being with us today.
Thanks, Jamie. Congressman Raskin. We'd now like to invite all of the public officials from the City Council who are with us. That is the Council Chairman, Phil Mendelson, Ward 3, this is Ward 3, Council Member Mary Che, at-large Council Member Alyssa Silverman, Council Member Anita Bond, and I believe, is Monica here? There she is. Monica Palacio is the Director of the District of Columbia Office of Human Rights. Love to have you all up with us, and those who are speaking will speak briefly, and our Council Chair, Phil Mendelson, first.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good afternoon. Let me say this. This is a very important opportunity for us to make a statement, and I'm going to begin with this. Washington, D.C., our public policy has been in place since the 1970s. We're a city that celebrates diversity. that we argue in every way against intolerance. We have a Human Rights Act that, when it was adopted in 1978, was a landmark in the country. We continue to strengthen it, although really it's kind of hard to strengthen a law that begins by saying that there shall be no discrimination in the District of Columbia except on the basis of merit. No other purpose, no other basis can there be discrimination, and that's our official policy. Now, personally, I think it's a mistake for folks to want to go downtown this weekend and to engage with the protesters. And instead, what I think is important, and I'm glad that my colleagues are here, and I will recognize them even though they've been recognized, Councilmember Alyssa Silverman at large, Councilmember Mary Che, Ward 3, Councilmember Anita Bonds at large, and not a Councilmember, Monica Palacio, who's with the Office on Human Rights, who administers our Human Rights Act. What I think is important about this event, and what I think is important about what's going on in the faith community this weekend, is to look for opportunities to make positive statements about tolerance, and strong statements condemning bigotry in all of its forms. Whether we're talking about bigotry based on racism or bigotry based on religion, anti-Semitism, the whole gamut of ways that people have found in this world to be bigoted, to condemn that and to reaffirm in every opportunity the values of diversity and celebrating tolerance. The council, we have looked for ways to make these statements, and we've made these statements in resolutions in the last few years several times a year, where we have adopted resolutions that make plain what I'm saying now. But then we also have been looking inward at how we can be more sensitive to racism as well as anti-Semitism, and how we can better understand equity. It's not just about equality, but equity as well in public policy. At this point, I think I'm just repeating myself that we appreciate this opportunity and to get the message out that we condemn bigotry in all of its forms and celebrate diversity and tolerance. Thank you. Do you all want to speak?
Mary, whoever wants, but very briefly, if you want to add
Speak for
anything.
everybody.
Very briefly. Well, hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. Yesterday, I was with a group of religious leaders of all kinds and others so that we could talk about what was impending for Sunday, but also to talk about what our messages should be. And so I'm delighted to be here again in that same vein. Two things I took away from that. One is a pragmatic issue about Sunday. I have great confidence that the police will be able to handle whatever occurs on Sunday, and so I want people to have a sense of confidence in that. But the second message that I took away from yesterday and reaffirmed again here today is that we have to have our own message. And our message is the message of the values of the District of Columbia. And let the nation see it. Let the world see it. We value diversity. We value inclusiveness. We are a city of many. And we will speak with one voice against the vile hate of these groups that are coming into town. But I also want to say about that, as I said yesterday, we have currently an administration that has unleashed these furies of hatred, unleashed these furies of divisiveness, and they are swirling about. So what we need to do, we need to condemn them, reject them, in no uncertain terms. And when we do that, there's something else that we have to do. We have to, again, speak with one voice of our values. Because here's the thing, okay? These furies, this hatred, these vile views, they suffocate under a blanket of love and fellowship. They cannot survive in that atmosphere. So we will maintain that atmosphere here. That will be our response. And in fact, I wish I would have thought of this much earlier so we could have prepared. I would have liked to have seen every synagogue, every church, every house of worship, every government building, every community building with a banner saying what our values are: love, inclusiveness, diversity. Because that's what we need to do. And so, you can clap. And in fact, from yesterday and today and what is going on in our community, I'm actually joyful, because it has provoked in us a reaffirmation of our humanity and our commitment to one another. And that of itself will be so valuable, and it has to go forward. So, when you're out talking to folks, and I know people have, written to me and they've talked to me, they are yearning to be able to express that. So let's give them the vehicle to express that. Ignore those people. They want attention. Remember what they did in Skokie? Once they got their permit, they left town. They didn't even bother, because they created all the buzz for themselves that they wanted. They should be ignored. They should be isolated. And we should overcome them with our message, our positive message of humanity. So, when we go forth tomorrow, the next day, and in the future, because this is not a one-off, we will be together, and we will be stronger. And that's why, out of all of this, I do feel joyful. So I'm pleased to be here today, and I want to continue on this path with all of you as we go. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we'll be together, Councilwoman Mary Cheh, in this space on September 16th for the annual Unity Walk that moves from this congregation to the Islamic Center, passes, I think, 10 different houses of worship that are in this space. Christian, Sikh, Hindu, Buddhist, along a path. And that's one of the ways we do that annually here, starting here on September 16th. Others want to say a word? We're happy to have you with us. And yes, okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. Thank you. My name is Monica Palacio. I'm the director of the Mayor's Office of Human Rights. And on behalf of Mayor Bowser, I wanted to bring a message of thanks and gratitude for your work every day in bringing communities together and sending a message of inclusion. It's important that people know the Office of Human Rights works on these issues every day. People who experience discrimination in employment, in housing, and trying to access a public service can come to us and file a complaint. Because we know that these rallies are one way that hate manifests and bias can manifest, but people experience this every day. And we need to tell them that our office is available and accessible so they can come to us and seek remedies for any harm they've endured. Yesterday, the mayor and the Mayor's Interfaith Council, the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs, myself and other officials got together with many of you, and the mayor was very vehement in her message that we are a city with values that include diversity, respect, love, and inclusion, the complete opposite of what's happening this weekend. So I'm very pleased to be here to represent her today and to let you know that our office does this work every day, every week, every month, all year round. And I think that trust and communication are built over time. So we hope that you continue to reach out to us. We'll work with you. And we're very pleased to send the message this weekend in unison that our city doesn't stand for the values that the group of people wants to come and scream out loud and clear. So we'll scream back, we're a city of inclusion, respect, and love. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to now ask the religious leaders who are here. Only a couple of you have been chosen to speak, but I would like every religious leader who is here with us, so that the council members can stay or go if they like, but I would like everybody to stay for a picture. If you can stay for a photo, it would be great. But anyway, we want everybody to see, and I'm going to move this out of the way. We don't need just words, because our presence speaks at least as loudly as these words. Look at the beautiful representations of the image of God. In some of the Vedic traditions, people have this gesture, which means I bow to the image of God which is in you, or more correctly, I should say, I bow to that part of divinity which is within you. Namaste. Namaste. So I've taken the risk of choosing 5 religious leaders of this distinguished gathering to speak briefly, but I first want to ask Rabbi Lustig, because I know he has to move over and make sure they're organized in the other part of his congregation, if he would just say a few words, and then there'll be 5 others who will speak briefly.
Well, I will be very brief. I want to thank the IFC and Congressman Raskin and Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton for organizing this, and certainly to the JCRC and to ADL for all their work each and every day. Washington Hebrew is a congregation that's in its 167th year, and we're in the heart of DC, which literally means a diverse community. And the reality is that I'm honored that our congregation can host this, but because of the religious leaders here, the reality is any rabbi, any synagogue, any minister or church or mosque or temple or any religious leader would have done the same thing, because that speaks of the nature of Washington's diverse community, and a community that unites under one banner, which is that we're all created in the image of God, and that we give love, respect, and dignity to all that are created with divinity. So today we're honored to host you, but we say that collectively because we're in one house of worship, we're in every house of worship. So Jerry, thank you, Rabbi Serrata, for all your hard work as a founding member of the Interfaith Conference. We are always proud of the work that's done. So thank you so much. And you'll excuse me while I go tend to a few other things.
So representing the faith community, these 5 wonderful people, first and foremost is the Dean of Interfaith Activity and Social Justice and Concern of the Interfaith Community, my brother Casey Caseman, Reverend Casey Caseman, with the Montgomery County Faith Community Advisory Council. He'll be followed by Reverend Dr. Rosetta Robinson from Disciples of Christ, Dr. Rajwant Singh of the Sikh Council on Religion and Education, Hornessa Faryad of the Adams Center, that's the All Dulles Area Muslim Society, and then finally Dr. Siva Subramanian of the United Hindu Jain Temples of Washington.
Thank you, Jerry, and good afternoon. I proudly crossed the border this afternoon into the District of Columbia, representing the Anglican to Zoroastrian faith communities of Montgomery County, who stand in solidarity with all of us and everyone who denounces bigotry of every kind and who is working toward the beloved community in which every basic human need is met and every human right respected. During the presidential campaign, Lutheran churches reached out to their colleagues in the United States, very concerned that the rhetoric, the dangerous rhetoric, would lead to increased hate and violence. A few stood up and spoke out. Most remained silent. This afternoon, we're breaking that silence. We're speaking out. We've come to listen as well. There'll be a teach-in. We've come to worship and to pray. And perhaps most importantly, then, to organize upon that for which we pray. A basic tenet of the civil rights movement that lies at the heart of every faith community is that the power of love is far greater than all forms of loveless power. With that in mind, we have no reason to be afraid and every reason to believe we will prevail. Rosetta.
Thank you so much for this invitation. I've written a few notes because being an African American preacher, we need the manuscript to help us stay on task and on time. So you don't want me to start ad-libbing, so I'll just follow my notes. How do you respond to what has happened in this country since Charlottesville and a new administration, and what will happen in the days to come? So I speak with a bit of sorrow about what has happened. It brings bad memories to mind of a trip that I made with a women's delegation from our Christian Church Disciples of Christ to South Africa in 2016. And we were in a museum viewing a documentary. And in that documentary was footage of the KKK. And it was there to make it plain to everyone who viewed it, looking at the history of that nation, that what had happened in America with slavery and bigotry and racism and the KKK was inspiring to their policies that they would develop on racial segregation. You ought to see that documentary. But the trip to South Africa heightened my commitment to truth-telling. Ephesians 5:16 encourages us to redeem the time, for the days are evil. So I speak with sorrow and with gratitude for Washington Hebrew Congregation, the Interfaith Conference, for seizing this time to summon us all together to shed some light on the darkness that is surrounding us and will be trying to surround us this weekend in Washington, D.C. We need to hear the words that have come from many people of faith and goodwill that stand up and live up to the highest American ideals. And somewhere, I think I read once in one of our founding documents that we are a nation that believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that all persons are created equal. I think I read that somewhere in grade school. I know it was a long time ago, but I think it's still there. If it's changed, can anybody correct me? Thank you. Well, I thank God for this time to again speak the truth. And as the Rabbi Sarada had quoted Dr. King, I'd like to add a little bit more to that quotation, where he talks about darkness can't drive out darkness, only light can. But he also says hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And he talked about the violence that hate creates. Hate multiplies hate. Violence multiplies violence. And toughness multiplies toughness in a descending spiral of destruction. And I wonder, are we heading on a descending spiral of destruction? So as I close, I want to thank God for this opportunity for dialogue and for truth-telling that will occur today, and for the healing and reconciliation that will come, and not just because of what faith leaders will do, and faith leaders need to lead the way, but for what we hope and pray that leaders in all sectors of our nation, from political to economic to education, will also be involved in leading the way to change the rhetoric of hate that is growing too strongly in this country.
I'm Rajwant Singh from the Sikh faith community. August 5th was the 6th anniversary of the attack on the Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, where a white supremacist person fired upon six individuals, and they were killed in the temple while worshiping. And this is a very painful and difficult period for our community, but as well as for the entire nation. If you look around, this is what is right about America. We represent the rightness, the taking the right path and being on the right side of issues and right side of the history. I have been here in this country from last 39 years, and I began my interfaith journey right at this congregation in '87. And I must say that my faith has strengthened by being in the company of these wonderful people and taking a journey with other faith communities and other ethnic groups, because it is not a process of diluting myself. America does not get diluted by being diverse. America gets dilated. It becomes bigger. And I also I like to read, and I've traveled. There is no other nation where so many faith communities, diverse faith communities, can come together and have dialogue. Tell me any other nation. It only happens in America. America is a role model for the entire world. This wonderful garden, we will not let it destroy anybody. We will not let any force, any leader, or any group will come and destroy. We want to make sure that our children, whether it's the Sikh children or Jewish, Hindu, Muslims, that their future is strong and secure, and they are embraced and loved by all of us. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings be unto all of you. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Good afternoon, my name is Hurun Nisa Faryad, and I'm in charge of outreach and interfaith at the Adams Center in Sterling, Virginia. Democracy, rights, liberty, opportunity, and equality, the American ideals, all of which are key reasons why people from all around the world yearn to come to the United States for a better life for them and their families. The image that America has maintained in the world arena for so long is unique in and of itself. To be the beacon of hope for those persecuted and relegated in their native land, for those who pay smugglers, for those who sell their livelihood, for those who just dream of having their human rights and dignity afforded to them. I know this because my family and I immigrated to the United States after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. America was the only place my father felt that would protect us, the only place that would extend to us the opportunity to live like human beings, regardless of our religion or race. We need to hold on to the American ideals. We need to stand together and be the voice for those who have been silenced. We need to show love, compassion, and empathy to all. In the Quran, God Most High says, "And good and evil are not alike. Repel evil with that which is better. And then the enmity between you and the other will become as though he were a warm friend." This is chapter 41, verse 34. For those that may have forgotten the American ideals, I would like to say, America has always been colossal to accommodate everyone, and it will continue to be colossal to accommodate everyone. I will end with two quotes by Maya Angelou. "Hate, it has caused a lot of problems in the world, but has not solved one yet. Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, it leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination full of hope." Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Siva Subramanian. I represent the United Hindu Jain Faith Association as part of the Interfaith Conference. I all come from the land of Mahatma Gandhi, who is the epitome of, in terms of peace, and the core principle of Hinduism and actually Jainism, ahimsa. Himsa is causing injury, violence in any form to anybody else, including yourself. Ahimsa is not causing such violence or injury to others. So with that core principle. Hinduism as identifies between good and evil, and even though the definition obviously is different, it is the scriptures talks about how important it is not to descend to the level of hatred, and that is going to be was exhibited, not get into the level in terms of the violence, but you have to get that with love, and that was amplified by others as well, and faith. And so here, as Rajwant said, this gathering represents United States of America. And so as United States of America, we give protection, freedom, dignity to every religion and ethnic group that is coming here, staying here. Except one group, the Native Americans. All of us are immigrants, one way or the other. And so not recognizing it is beyond my intelligence to even think that there are somebody is different because they arrived recently. So I think it is very important that we are here to declare our solidarity, our oneness, our togetherness, and show our love and the affection to the people, and as a counter to what hatred and violence that's going to be spewed. With that, let me conclude with our traditional prayer. In fact, the first thing that Jerry has already said, we normally start with Namaste, which is, I bow to the divinity in you, in each one of you. And I will close with a very simple word, repeated thrice, for peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let there be peace, peace, peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to my sisters and brothers. Thank you and apologies. This Sunday starts the month of apologies for the Jewish community, the new month of Elul, for those who didn't have the opportunity to speak. But it was such a wonderful experience to share this space with you. We're pleased that those of you who are here are with us. You are our friends. If there are others, I know the program is starting over on the other side of the congregation, and many people will want to run over there. But if anybody wants to ask questions of anybody in particular, some of us will stick around and the others will run over to the main sanctuary of Washington Hebrew. Thank you.
Thank you.